You got to learn to go backwards in time to get the understanding and then come forward to the present and bring that understanding with you. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. Welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number 248. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the broadcast. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell over there. If you enjoy my work and you'd like to support the program, please visit jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you will see stuff like this, the 4 tenets of Jeet Kune t-shirt, long sleeve, short sleeve, sweatshirt, hoodie, coffee mug, all that good stuff. But of course, the best thing you can do is to spread the word about the I Love Jeet Kune broadcasts by sharing this video. All right. So they just switched something on me there, threw me off a little bit. Okay. So here's what I was told. You must try to think the thought the thinker thought when he thought the thought, right? So what am I talking about? Well, I'm glad you asked that question. It's a way to get a better understanding of what might have been, and you can use this for anything, but we use it for Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune. So it's a way to get a better understanding of what might have been going through Bruce Lee's mind when he said what he said or wrote what he wrote, as well as in the time period during his lifetime, and then when it was subject to examination in the time period, that's oxymoronic, isn't it? In the period after his premature death. So here's what I mean. If you're going to debate or discuss a Jeet Kune issue with someone, in all fairness, you should try to put whatever point you're making, if it's appropriate, into its correct historical context, which is a phrase that I love to use. One reason I say this is because many people do not realize that which grew into Jeet Kune, that which grew to become the Jeet Kune, let's say of the 1980s and thereafter, was not at all the Jeet Kune of the late 1960s up to, let's call it, the mid to late 1970s. So original, and I'm using it in its correct meaning, original Jeet Kune was a backyard, almost a closed door thing. A bunch of guys getting together to work on what worked for them. Yes, there was a touch of celebrity associated with it because it's the art, it's the approach founded by Bruce Lee, the well-known actor and, and subsequent movie star and what have you. And so, yes, Black Belt magazine, for example, did come by the Chinatown School to do a pictorial essay and what have you. So in the years after Bruce Lee left for Hong Kong, and then, like I mentioned before, after his unfortunate passing, JKD still remained essentially a small group activity. When Dan Inosanto and Richard Bustillo opened up the Junfan Gung Fu and Filipino Kali Academy in 1974, what became the Jeet Kune class was still small group, closed door, and open only for a select number of students. So in those circumstances, under those kinds of conditions, you could say certain things and you could make certain remarks that would be understood by that inner circle. And if they weren't understood, then in that small group setting, you could sit down or sit around and discuss it more deeply. So you could say something like, well, in kicking range or in punching range, this and this and this, because it's immediately visible in that present time what you mean, because everybody's there with you. You could even go so far in a circle setting to be critical of a martial arts systems. Now, when you start teaching a greater number of people, people, most of whom have been clamoring for information about Bruce Lee's art, and so you're trying to respond to that request while staying true somewhat idealistically to JKD's value system, then you might make an error if you say the same things that you were saying to the little group, because it's no longer that little intimate group setting. So the things that you say in that group that you work with, week in, week out, that doesn't translate as readily as with people that you might see once or twice a year. And so you say it to them, and it can end up being misinterpreted. And then if they go off and repeat it, it can end up being reinterpreted as something completely different. I talked about being critical of arts in the small group, right? You're working in Jeet Kune, so obviously you have an appreciation for different martial arts. You have an appreciation for what different martial arts have to offer, but you can also be critical. You can talk about what they don't offer that you're in search of. But try doing that in public, and you just might develop a reputation that ultimately you might not enjoy, right? And if you do that long enough in that public setting, you might enjoy a public visit to your seminar from representatives of that art, if you know what I mean, right? So please, when you talk about Jeet Kune nowadays, think about what it is that you're trying to say, okay? So take, for example, saying that Bruce Lee is in some form or fashion responsible or contributed to the birth of mixed martial arts in America. Now, on the surface, that makes sense if you believe that Bruce Lee was all about mixing the best techniques from different martial arts to create Jeet Kune. So if Bruce Lee, the well-known, the famous martial artist, greatest martial artist of all time, if he was into mixing techniques from different styles to create Jeet Kune, well, yeah, then that sounds like mixed martial arts. So yeah, he's the father, godfather, grandfather, stepfather, whatever, of MMA. Additionally, if you go down the tack of, well, Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune was about realistic training, and MMA is almost as real as it gets. I'm not going to get into the sport versus self-defense, whatever, right? But Bruce Lee was about realistic training. MMA is about realistic training. So once again, here now, Bruce Lee becomes an originator of MMA or what have you. We could, if we're being generous, we could call both of these good questions. But a problem with both of them is that they don't take Bruce Lee's own mindset into consideration, right? When these topics are broached. So when people have this discussion, ultimately, they end up projecting their own wishes or their own opinions onto Bruce Lee, a guy who at the time did not look favorably on martial arts competitions, but based on where his head was at, the safest thing to say is that he might have approved of MMA, but we don't know, so we shouldn't talk as if we do. Okay? So that's how you stay present when you talk about martial art or about Jeet Kune, and that's how you avoid presentism in talking about Jeet Kune. All right, so I want to tell you a little story and give you a little a subtopic, let's call it, right? because it falls in line with what we're doing. So quick story. Um, my Wednesday morning client, Amy, we'll call her Amy, right? She shows up late this morning, and I had a new pair of boxing gloves for her, so that we were to break in. So in order to punish her for showing up late, we gloved up and we went straight into glove drilling, right? And so during the course of the class, um, we got into a thing about what how to describe Jeet Kune Do to people, right? So I guess she's had questions from friends or family members or whatever. And I said to her, well, based on who they are, you could you could just say to them that it's a kung fu style invented by Bruce Lee, right? She goes, yeah, I could do that, and they would probably be happy with that. But it's not really true, is it? Right? And I said, so of course it's not really true. But sometimes when people ask stuff like that, right? Because for a lot of people, the study of martial art, the practice of martial art is still like an esoteric thing, right? And so there are people out there who ask you about your martial art practice because they just want to be sure that you're not smarter than them in some way, that you're not involved in something that might give you an edge over them or what have you. So if you say to somebody like that, oh, it's a kung fu style invented by Bruce Lee, guess what? They will be happy with that. Why? Because they know the term kung fu and they have heard of Bruce Lee. So they'll be happy. Now, like I said, it isn't. So now if you're talking to somebody who is really interested, then you might have to go a little bit deeper, right? So I told her, I continued that that's one of the problems with Jeet Kune Do. It is very often beyond a lay person's level of understanding, which is why Bruce Lee is noted to have said something like, only 1 in 10,000 will get my Jeet Kune Do or what have you, right? So I said to her, so look at what we did this morning. So it was all glove drilling. Now, glove drilling is a thing that you can find in Muay Thai. You can find it in box française. You can find it in Filipino panantukan. The idea of, but here's the thing, right? The idea of using the glove drilling to warm into your training, right? To warm up into your training. That is something that I got from the late, great Salem Asli and the French kickboxers. It is akin to something that Bruce Lee talks about in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, which is that sometimes the best warm up for the activity is the performance of the activity itself. So the French kickboxers will just go nice and easy, but they're doing the actual techniques as the warm up, right? And then as the body warms up or whatever, you can go faster, you can go harder, you can start kicking higher or whatever, right? But we weren't using box française techniques per se. We were using Western boxing techniques. But the idea of what we were doing comes from French kickboxing. We also used the 3-count exchange drill that is affectionately known by many of us as the jab drill, which comes from Filipino Kali, comes from the Filipino boxing. So imagine trying to explain all of that to someone who asked you about what types of training you do. And it's somebody who's really not that interested in what you're doing. But look at how long it took me to explain that to you in explaining to her. That's a problem with Jeet Kune Do. Now, there are people who will hear this podcast and they'll go, oh, well, he's talking about style hopping. The reason why I gave Amy that history lesson is because she is someone who is interested in Jeet Kune Do. I didn't have to use any identifiers. I could just go, okay, so we're gonna glove drill, right? And then we'd go, and we did what we did. We just trained. So I guess the way those people's minds work, if I don't identify anything with my client, it's Jeet Kune Do because I'm not labeling it. But if I do attach a label to it, Now I'm a style hopper. It's not Jeet Kune Do anymore. You see where I'm going with this, right? Anyhow, so long story short, I just explained to her what you got there is an example of the integration that exists in Jeet Kune Do, which is why sometimes I go, the Jeet Kune Do just disappears. Jeet Kune Do just becomes invisible, right? Okay, all right. So that's it. You guys, let me know what you think about my explanation about integration in Jeet Kune Do, and then the whole thing about historical context when it comes to talking about Jeet Kune Do. Let me know what you think in the comments below. That's all I got to say about this video. If you like what you heard, comment, rate, subscribe, hit the notification bell over on the YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. At paypal.me/UnifiedMA Miami, the Jeet Kune Do Journey, Volume 1. Still available, the raw but edited version. Coming up on Friday, the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues episode, a return visit. I think this is his third time with us. Mark Stewart, the mad professor of Boxer Rebellion. And I think we're just going to go through some of his recent epiphanies on JKD training and what have you. So that's Friday, the 14th at 6 p.m. Today's a pastel day, so I went with the beige light colored thing. So that's it. So I'll see some of you on Friday. If not, I'll see you next Wednesday for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. Until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care. Talk soon.